And we have Shana Sissel back, who is the founder and CEO of Banrian Capital and who is the queen of the alternatives. And you're probably asking why we're ever back, because she gave us such amazing things 2 weeks ago. She talked about Corning literally the day before it rallied 15%. I don't know if any of you guys caught that. Also, before we start, I'd like to thank our sponsors. First off, Independence Arc Farm. We complain about big food conglomerates controlling the food supply. There is something you can do about it, and that's patronize small independent operators like Marco at Independence Arc. The American Gold Exchange, Dana Samuelson. He will deliver physical gold and silver safely right to your doorstep. Please use the link on our page. Lastly, unfilteredinvestor.com, where Mike Arnold and Bob Iacchino have been absolutely hitting it out of the ballpark. I am so pleased to be part of that with them, even if I'm just there to provide comic relief. How are you, Shana?
I'm good. And I love that you made it sound like you're having me back on, because I had this like amazing stuff
Yeah,
to
just
add
thought
to
of
the
that on the
last show,
spot. It's pretty good.
and not because you hadn't had me on in like 2 years.
Okay. Thanks for bringing some honesty, which is not always what we deal in, but thank you. The Corning call was fantastic though. And we do have some things that we do want you to clear up, but Bobby, you go first.
Yeah. So we had a very short period of time with you, and I didn't get to ask one of the main things that I wanted to ask you is, with what's going on with Bitcoin now. I really hate to lead off a show with Bitcoin. Where does Bitcoin fall in the things you look at? Is it tradable? Is it investable? Is it an active investment? Or do you not look at it all and you just say it's silly?
We do pay attention to Bitcoin. It's actually, I run a ETF model, SMA,
Right.
for Wisdom Tree, and we do have a small position in Bitcoin through that model. And I haven't adjusted my position. If anything, I'd probably adjust it up. It's probably down quite a bit. It wasn't a particularly large position in the portfolio. And it's also have a position in a ETF called BEGS, which is like a return stacked Bitcoin, ETH, gold, silver fund, which has made up for all of the issues Bitcoin has had, because it's absolutely diverged from following the price of Bitcoin after it kind of fell off the map. But where does it fall for me? Well, it's an alternative asset class. I would consider it a high risk asset class. I don't bucket things into like tradable or whatever. It's like, does it belong in a portfolio? And if so, how? And if it belongs in a portfolio, then it means I have a long-term view on it. I would say I am long-term bullish on crypto in general. I don't know if the technicals support buying Bitcoin here. I was listening to some technical analysts talk about, potential bottom for Bitcoin, and they were talking like 38,000, 40,000 based on historic movements of the security. When it has these kind of sell-offs, it tends to move in certain bands. I don't know if I buy $38,000 Bitcoin, but 70 feels a little expensive. I think if it breaks 70, because it's hitting resistance here, I might look at adding to it. But I think long term, it's something I want to own. Not a ton of it. It's very volatile and it's got a lot of risk associated with it, but it's definitely, crypto in general is something I want to own. I believe in the blockchain. I believe in that technology and its importance as we move forward. I think it's as important, if not more, than even some of the AI stuff that we're talking about. I think they go hand in hand with the supercomputing needs and the build out of data centers and infrastructure. So yeah, that's where I stand on Bitcoin.
So Bobby,
do you think in this, hang on a second, Jimmy, do you think in this, at this stage, Shana, would you tell people who said, yeah, I want to get in Bitcoin, you said it's a small holding, would you say Coinbase account and do a hard wallet, ETFs, futures? How would you tell people to look at it?
Well, I think unless they are really committed to it, I wouldn't do Coinbase in a wallet. And I probably would skip a Coinbase and just say get a cold storage wallet. If you're that committed to it, and then put that wallet in like a safety deposit box or something, because they're so small. You can, I have one myself. There's nothing on it, thankfully, but I was given one to store if I ever wanted to. And I find it occasionally. I'm like, oh yeah, that's where that went. So I can only imagine what would happen if I actually had something of value on it. But I think the best way for somebody who's new to crypto in general is through the ETFs and other products where it's packaged in a way that's easier to keep in your investment accounts. And I think that's the key, right? Because if you have it on cold storage wallet or you use Coinbase or some of the others that are out there, you can't see it in a consolidated view of your assets. And if you work with an advisor or somebody, they're not going to be able to think about it in the broader sense of your portfolio and your risk and all that kind of stuff. And I think something like crypto is something that really needs to be considered as part of the bigger picture of your investments. So I would say for the average person that's interested in dipping their toe, that's never done it before, I would be looking at, there's more than enough ETFs in this space now. In fact, we're seeing more and more come to market with Solana and all these other coins. So that's how I would play it.
Is there a just a cryptocurrency ETF that blends like the top 5 coins?
Yeah, I think Bitwise has one.
That's I would have guessed, right?
And I feel like Van Eck might have one too.
Yeah. Okay. I want to add something else about the Bitcoin discussion too, is that the NASDAQ put in its high in October, approximately the same week as Bitcoin did. The NASDAQ traded off 9%, Bitcoin traded off 50%. So it's like, people are like, well, how can you say it's correlated to the NASDAQ still when that move was so outsized? Well, it's supposed to be outsized. It's Bitcoin. It's highly, highly volatile. If the NASDAQ moves 9%, I would pretty much say that means 3-4 times the move happens in Bitcoin. And it did. And also back in October is when 2-year yields started climbing higher, 10-year yields started climbing higher. So it was a lot of headwinds for it. And, again, it traded down 50%, which sucks. I always think that I want to have 1% of my net worth in Bitcoin. And I did that a couple of years ago, and then it blew up to like 3.5%, which I thought was too much. But anyway, that was just some side note. Bobby, you can ask the follow-up question.
Just because I got distracted, so I wasn't paying attention at all to what you were saying.
That's great. That's great.
But it is Bitwise. It's BitW. It's the Bitwise 10 crypto index. It's the top 10.
What is it? BITW?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Bobby, you're up.
I had a lot of fun watching your Twitter during the Super Bowl yesterday. For those of you that don't know, she is a Patriots fan. And I thought let me just throw out what I saw yesterday or this morning that made me laugh. It said it was a Babylon Bee, of course, so it wasn't real. But it said the Patriots offensive line just realized that they already played the Super Bowl. They thought it was today.
No, the O-line was absolutely atrocious.
But that wasn't offside. I thought you were dead on that. I saw your Twitter. She's like, "How do you not throw a flag?" And I keep
so there were at least 4 times where I was like, "What in the world?" The first one was when Walker got a first down. It was like 3rd and 3, and they definitely stopped him at least before the yellow line, right? Because when he got up off the ground, he was at least a yard away from it. And then they gave him it, and I was like, "Why are we not throwing the red flag and asking for a review of the spot?" Because that was a big move, right? Because that got them into field position for the first field goal. And then the offsides on that punt where they should have gotten a first, it was totally, and they showed it in slow motion. It was so obvious.
It was horrible. There were 2 guys offsides on that.
Right. And then the call where the guy hit Diggs out of bounds that started the fight, that should have been a call. And it should have been, he should have gotten called for that. And then when he threw the punch, he could have gotten thrown out of the game. But because they didn't throw a flag, when he threw a punch, they couldn't kick him out.
Right. There was no penalty, so they couldn't
and then
throw him
there
out.
was another penalty that should have been called on the 2-point conversion. None of these things, I think, had an impact on the fact that the Pats O-line was awful. And Will Campbell's getting a lot of hate, but he played absolutely atrociously bad. However, I do like to point out he had a really serious knee injury halfway through the season. And prior to that, he played exceptionally well. Then he went on IR and they brought him back for the playoffs. And I feel like that is why he played so poorly in the playoffs. Is he had a torn MCL, but he didn't tear his ACL. So they brought him back. He didn't have surgery. And
Is he one of the rookies?
Yes.
Is he one of the 2 rookies?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And he's
Left
the
tackle, Jimmy.
left tackle. And the thing is that entire position is about leverage, right? And if your knee is compromised, you got no leverage. And
No doubt about
so,
it.
you know,
Yeah, he was getting
he's a
run
rookie,
over.
but he was getting manhandled. And I do think that his injury had something to do with it. Not to say that he's like great or whatever, but I do think that had, you know, and Drake May looked scared the whole time.
Yeah, I agree that Drake May look scared. And I wonder if he was hurting a little bit too, because
he does have a shoulder injury that they said
that's what I
maybe
thought.
was maybe they downplayed it a little bit to try and not have the Seattle defense focus on it, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we move on to rotations?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry. I thought we were just going to talk sports for the rest of the game.
I had my way. We would talk sports.
I could keep going.
Right.
Let's move on.
Okay.
And just before we move on, I just want to say congratulations to the Seahawks fans. People like to say, oh, the Patriots lost their 6th Super Bowl, the most all time. Well, you know, when you've been there the most, you know, and you have the most wins, you're going to have the most losses too. That said, congratulations to the Seahawks. Their defense played well. But I don't think their offense played like I feel like if our offense showed any bit of like ability to get anything
to be honest, it was a boring game. If you weren't like passionately into one or team or the other, it was a really boring game.
I love defensive battles, but that is not good for ratings.
No, that's not what that was. It was bad offense instead of good defense.
It was bad offense on both sides. The
Agreed.
defenses were amazing.
Agreed.
Both defenses were just out of their minds. Good.
Really great, I thought too. But Bobby, I'm going to ask you because I can't ask Shana this because I know what she's going to answer. If you try to look at it from a 30,000-foot thing and you see Drake May and Caleb Williams on the draft board at the same time, who do you pick? Shana, I'm not asking you. Who do you pick, Drake May or
still, especially after watching yesterday, I still pick Caleb.
And Shana, do you think, like, if you had to rate the two of them, and I know I love Drake May, don't get me wrong, and if you rated him as far as a draft pick, a 9, do you rate Caleb Williams an 8 or a 7, or what do you think?
I think Caleb Williams has massive problems with making stupid decisions.
He has made, and he got a lot of times people didn't catch interceptions that he should have thrown.
Right. They both have a great arm. They can both throw the long ball. Generally speaking, Drake May has much higher completion percentage throughout his career, including, and I would take that every day of the week. And he, notwithstanding the fact that his offensive line just destroyed him, he generally takes better care of the ball.
The one thing I will say, and I think you would agree, one thing in the last drive of a game, Caleb Williams does very well. Not because he's Mr. Clutch. It's because he uses his legs a lot more in the last drive of a game. And when he uses his legs, he's quite amazing.
I'll say this. So just people don't geek out in this as much as I do. Caleb Williams during the season was actually one of the lowest interception quarterbacks in the NFL. He barely threw any. But the thing about it is he got ranked by Pro Football Focus. They went back to about 2010 to look at the damage done by interceptions. Okay. So in other words, because some interceptions are punts, right? They're not that big of a deal.
Right. They're not that big a deal.
It's a punt. It's a late third down throw or a 4th down throw. They're going for it on 4th and 5, and it gets intercepted 40 yards down the field. It's a punt, right? And that's honestly, that's a strategy that some football teams use because they say, look, if we're not going to get the 4th and 5, let them intercept it down there so that they don't get it up here. And players, having played, you're in the moment, you're catching it. You're not going to go, oh, it's stupid if I catch it and whack it down.
Right. The guy in the Packers knew right away as he was getting up, like, shit.
After they catch it, like, hell, I got an interception now, but we're way back here.
Yeah.
So he was ranked as number 1 in the last 25 years in terms of the efficiency of his interceptions, and he actually throws very few. Now, you look at Caleb Williams last year, he was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. Same like what Drake went through in the Super Bowl. I think if I had to pick him again, completion percentage, spot on. I mean, he's got terrible completion percentage. But number 1, that's a coachable thing. And number 2, that's like comparing a guy who does 2-point layups and has a 60% completion percentage in the NBA or a field goal percentage versus a guy who shoots behind the 3-point line and hits 40. Caleb, when he throws and completes passes, he's got one of the highest yards per pass rate in 3rd and 4th down. So it's nuanced in a way. I think the completion percentage thing is the only real complaint against Caleb this year, and I think it's overblown when you look at the stats.
I'm looking
But
at their
I'm also
stats,
very
and
biased.
I really don't think that their stats are drastically different.
Yeah, I agree.
I will say that the problem with Caleb is that they rely on him much more. He doesn't have a balanced offense.
Oh, I agree.
So his attempts are way higher, and subsequently his completion percentage is much lower. But in terms of like interceptions, I mean, he has less interceptions, but like not like a mass. It's like one.
Yeah, it's like one. It's not
one. It's not.
I look at them as 1A and 1B. Really, I do.
Right.
Jaden Daniels is third to me.
Yeah, and then Bo Nix fourth. It's a great quarterback class, and I think a lot of teams are very, very happy with who they got. I think at the end of it all, in 10 years, we're going to look at that class as one of the 3, 4, 5 best quarterback class ever, because I think there's a lot. I think
Jalen Hurts is terrible, but I'm only saying that to see if Widge is watching.
Jalen Hurts. Anyway, you guys, sometimes we talk about markets on the show. Can we get back to that or no?
Yeah, I guess we can.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about the broadening out of the AI trade. I actually think the fact that the Magnificent Seven are no longer leading the market. NVIDIA had a 20% drawdown. The NASDAQ had a 9% drawdown, and the other indexes are yawning and handling pretty well. To me, that's a good thing. Do you think it's a good thing, Shana, that we're doing this? Are we almost through with the rotation? What stage are we at?
No, I think that it is a good thing. Obviously, we've had multiple years of 20% plus returns. That's not normal. And historically, there's going to have to be some revision to the mean. And there's lots of questions surrounding a number of areas of the market. There's a lot of questions about just the overall economy, the employment markets, inflation. It looks like the job report will be slightly better than expected, but inflation seems to also be going, higher than expected. I think that we're probably going to get into something that is more in line with history. And I think that as a result, active managers should do better when you're rewarded. I think Strategist does a great job, and people talk about this all the time. The way that you can kind of tell is the equal weighted versus the market weighted indices. And when the equal weighted is doing better than the market weighted, it tends to suggest that stock picking is working. Take what you will away from that, but that typically means there's breadth to the market, and so that you aren't as penalized for not owning the largest names. And that's what you can say. And so when you see consistency to that relationship, that's usually a sign that we're having more breadth to the market and that stock picking works. Stock picking always works better, and as you go down in cap anyways. So
Bobby, after 3 years of double-digit gains, successful double-digit gains, the S&P, the next year averages about 3 to 4% usually. Do you think that there's a reckoning, come to Jesus moment in the stock market? We're going to have a difficult time, or are you bull?
It's hard to say, because I think a lot of it has to do with exogenous factors we don't have answers to already. Like, for example, when is the uncertainty about tariff policy going to be done? I assume he's going to continue to threaten it, and I don't really care. I mean, I personally don't think it's caused any sustained inflation. Maybe that'll play out. Somebody said to me recently that, I think it was Widge actually, said to me recently that if he keeps being undecided on where the tariffs are going to finally land, he thinks that will cause inflation. Fair enough. I think the Fed chair has a lot to do with it. I think there's room for a Fed to explain and ease away. I'm not sure if it's the right idea or not, but I think there's plenty of room to it. And then you got today with Hassett and somewhat Trump saying the non-farm payrolls is going to be bad.
You mean Warsh? You mean Warsh?
Wasn't it Hassett?
Oh, no, I don't know. I didn't see the quote.
I think it was Hassett. Kevin Hassett said that people shouldn't be surprised by, I'm paraphrasing, shouldn't be surprised by a poor payrolls number. And then Trump tweeted something on Truth Social about, sometimes the number's bad because we're working on getting it better, but it hasn't come out yet. So it was weird to me. When you see these kinds of things, it's like, I feel like the stock market, there's nothing in its way except all the outside factors. Shana, have you seen, like, at the earnings so far this year, how would you rank them so far? Have you been paying attention that closely or no?
paying the attention that closely, but I will say this. I think that, and this is controversial, but remember like a year ago, Trump floated this idea that earnings will be a quarterly thing or an annual thing and not a quarterly thing.
Yeah.
I actually think that's not the worst idea in the world. And I'll tell you why. I feel like company executives are now gotten smart to the fact that the market holds them to what they say. And so they just under promise and over deliver over and over again on purpose.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And I feel like it doesn't matter anymore. Like, I feel like earnings aren't driving stock prices the way that you would expect them to, because most of the time there's like a whisper number. Like now there's like a whisper number of everything. It's like, okay, well, this is stupid. And I just don't believe that earnings reports are nearly as important as they once were, because there's, with 24-hour news cycle and X and Twitter, and like everybody knows what's going on. So there's literally no surprises. You have Jensen Huang being interviewed every other week, right?
Yeah.
We kind of know where things are going. So I don't know that earnings and the news on earnings matters as much. In fact, when I worked at Ariel, we did this whole project about like stock behavior or following an earnings report. And it's like, what it does immediately following earnings is like completely irrelevant to where the stock price is like 6 months from then. In fact, you should do nothing right after earnings and like wait a month. And then usually it starts to move in whatever direction it's going to go, for the longer term. And that was actually a really important project that we did, because it turned out that we were trading too soon after earnings reports and making bad decisions. But the point being is that I don't know that earnings matter, because we have so much transparency into what's going on with these large companies that we never did before, and they're less important. And I do feel like, company executives have kind of like figured it out, and now they're like purposely conservative in their numbers. And so it's rare that earnings don't beat. I can't think of the last time earnings reports didn't have above 70% surprise number.
I was looking at the email I got from FactSet, and it
They
literally
send one
said,
out every month.
Yeah, and it literally said, this will be the 10th consecutive quarter of beating earnings beats by double digits. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
There's a couple of questions in here that I want to throw to you. Number one is, what did you guys think of the Dunkin' Donuts commercial? I don't remember it.
I thought it was
awesome. And I have to tell you, I didn't love it, because I did not think it worked. Like when all of a sudden Ben Affleck was the Ross character, but looked nothing like the Ross character.
Yeah.
Until that very moment, it was like, what? And then they threw in the Good Will Hunting part. And like, I loved all the people they had in the commercial. Like, I love that they brought out Urkel, and I love that they threw Tom Brady in there. And of course, Ben and Matt is always great to have them. And then they had, what's his name? Matt LeBlanc in there, which was
Matt LeBlanc,
weird.
yeah.
I know it's because he's from Newton, but still.
And they were all aged down, right? With AI.
Yes, they were all aged down with AI. I don't know. I felt like what they were doing last year was funnier. The Ted Danson, part of it was kind of funny, because he was like, are you going to be doing this until you retire? Which is like, I thought that was totally funny, because it was so spot on. But I didn't get it. Like,
I didn't think it worked. Right.
I didn't feel like there were any commercials last night that I was like, oh my God, this is so funny.
That was from our friend Tim, who's got a follow-up. But first, before I ask his follow-up, and then Widge has one too, Jimmy, if you want me to go with questions.
Sure, go, yeah.
My favorite one was the Clydesdale and the Eagle.
That was good.
I'm such a loser, Shana. I'm such a loser. Like, I'm watching the horse, and then the eagle flies off the horse after he's like a little rainy chick. Yeah. And I'm just like, and then there's the one guy asked the other guy at the end, are you crying? He's like, no, there's something in my eye. I was crying when that was happening. No, I'm a loser. Don't even patronize me.
No, I didn't feel like there was any commercials that I was like. Yeah.
Well, Bobby, do you realize how big a deal that commercial was to go in a year's time, to go from them getting a transgender as their spokesperson to saying, okay, you guys are right. We're going back to bald eagles and Clydesdales. That's a big deal. That's a victory for grassroots. That's just was my input on
Yeah,
that.
just before I move on to the follow-up, which is market related, we just said those were all good hunting references on Duncan. No, they weren't. The one was a Cheers reference.
Yeah.
There was
And
a
one
Cheers
Goodwill
reference. There
Hunting.
was a Friends reference
Friends
because
reference,
he said
correct.
we were
Friends
on a
reference.
break
Right.
when Jennifer Aniston came over.
Yeah, we were on a
There was
break.
a
That's
Friends
right.
reference. So no, it wasn't all Goodwill Hunting. There were
How
other
you doing
ones.
is a Friends reference.
Yeah, right.
How you doing? Yeah, there was others that were. There was a Cheers reference. There was a Family Matters reference. There were references to other shows, and like the chick from A Different World. Like what? I don't know. That wasn't a big enough show for most people to get it.
I didn't even know. Yeah, I didn't even know what A Different World is. Right?
Jasmine Guy, I think that's her name. She was on that show, the Cosby Show spinoff, Different World, when they went to college at, what was it, Hillman?
Tillman.
Which is like
Hillman,
Hillman, whatever. It was like the Howard University.
Oh,
Like
that's
she
who
was
she is,
there.
right.
She played like Minnie Driver's character, but like at the same time, like totally didn't fit anywhere. And
Yeah,
I didn't
just
get it.
didn't get it. Yeah.
Her description, Shana's description though, Jimmy, was like, and then she was, wait, what? It's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a market question in here from Tim. AI told me 21 of 21 major Wall Street market analysts are currently bullish. Does that scare Shana at all?
No, they're always bullish. Always. They tend to be late to turn and they tend to be overly bullish all the time. Does it scare me? Not necessarily, because I don't think markets, I think market sentiment is, what is it? I think I said this on the last episode, but what does Keynes say? You can stay.
The market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent.
And I also think that like the mechanisms the Fed has and other things to keep the markets like stabilized are more efficient these days. I look, I'm not a super bull on the market, but the downside of, there's nothing in the system that screams to me, oh my God, risk. So the only things that can impact market in a negative way are going to be outside factors, geopolitical or stuff that's not related to the markets themselves. And those things are like impossible to predict. And I always say, for people who are like, well, that's why you hold gold. I'm like, dude, if owning gold is because the whole world's going, we have bigger problems. Yeah. You know, like that's why when people are like, oh, I want to have gold in my basement, like, dude, if the whole world is like falling apart, I don't know that helps you. I think people are bartering for food and clothes.
Guns might.
Or guns. Yeah, but there.
Byron Wien always said, if you have gold, you should have guns. If you're going to need the gold, you're going to need the gun. That was
I see that. I see the basement value of gold and things of that nature. But like as a like apocalypse, like having in your basement in case the world ends, like I don't know. I feel like nobody's going to care.
Bobby, can we talk about crude? My big contrarian trade for the year?
Yeah.
Because I'm starting to like it even more, and I'll show you why if the chart I was looking at was the right one.
It's really beaten up, right?
It's been beating the shit out of it for years, and I think it's coming back.
I feel like I see $2 a gallon gasoline in Chicago area, and that's all I need to know about what.
Right. So the last, like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 bars have all been like in this consolidation pattern that to me looks like it's going to go higher still. I am a bull on the U.S. economy. I think the expansion's underway, and we haven't really felt, 1, tax cuts, 2, deregulation, 3, if there's any reshoring of supply chain shit that Trump got promises for. That's always a believe it when I see it thing. So I'm putting it kind of as a maybe. But I think the American economy could be coming back in a somewhat significant way. And I think crude could be the beneficiary of that. Bobby, you looking at the chart?
Yeah. You want to put it up?
Yeah, sure. And Shana, I want to know your opinion on crude too. And any of those things that I said. If you think I'm an idiot, that's fine.
So are we waiting for Bobby, or you want me to
Yeah, this will take me.
You can talk over it. Dead air. You know, we're all to talking heads. We hate dead air. Okay, you see what I see, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a consolidation triangle here, and it would say that it's going to continue to the upside because people don't realize this, but triangles are generally continuation patterns, not reversal patterns. They more off. You're talking about 58% of the time, so it's not a dramatic thing. And yeah, the only, like I mentioned to you before, right now, I could potentially have a long trade for crude oil, but I wasn't looking at it. So what it would be for me, and let me get rid of this triangle, it would have already happened. So
As we
brave that I
came
could
out of the
bring that
rotation
up
zone.
now. Yeah. But when I got a break above this sort of best fit trend line here, as it moved back into this rotation zone here, I should have bought on the 4th. I didn't. Okay. Also, we talk all the time that these types of signals, it's not just that they happen, it's where they happen. Okay. And if I add in a horizontal line where this breakout would have been, it's above this support level here, which is just vanilla support. It's not a big deal, but you can see it mattered here and it mattered here. And then this was technically the breakout level as well. So it mattered again. But even you go further back in time, this green line has been a reactionary level a lot of the time. So it's a good buy if you have it on. I don't have it on. I would just be very cautious if we got below. Let's see, where is this? I'll just say this right here. Because if we get below, come on, stupid ass. Okay, 61.88. If we get below 61.88, you're now flirting again with the 50 and the 200.
No, I see that
there.
too.
I don't care if the 50 and 200 cross personally. Golden cross, death cross, that's all how you trade it in the way that I've seen it.
Right.
But if we get this golden cross, what generally happens is you get a rally that already happened to cause them to cross. And then you get to move back down to the cross, which will likely be somewhere around $60 at that point.
Yeah.
So
Shana, do you have a thought on crude?
So I'll let you guys be technical geeks. I don't look at technicals. It's not
That's
it's
why
not
we have
my
you on
world.
the
It's not
case.
the world I grew up in. I've always been kind of more of a fundamental, and I trust my dad a lot with this stuff. I look at stuff like this and a supply demand thing, and I think to myself, the world has fundamentally changed in its supply demands, in the nature of supply and demand for crude oil. There is a very clear concerted effort to try to move away from, relying on crude as much. I think it swung too far to one direction. But I do think that just overall demand is not gonna, I don't think it's gonna go higher. And so I don't know that there's a long-term story here in which I want to think about crude at all.
Fair enough. And Bobby, by the way, I broke one of your cardinal rules. I didn't buy crude itself. I bought names, and I bought a couple ETFs that had names in it. Because I liked those charts a little better at the time. It wasn't because I thought it was a better way to play crude. But what do you got, Bob?
Thing from Widge in the chat here. Thanks for the shout out, Bobby. My thesis on tariffs being inflationary was if they were monetized via Fed policy or via fiscal policy, not inflationary otherwise. I just wanted that.
So I have a thing that I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and somebody who's not really a market person. They were asking me my thoughts on Trump and like the markets and the Fed and everything, and how the dollar is weakening and like, is this manipulation, whatever. And there's all kinds of like opinions on this. But my takeaway of the president is that he has a really clear game that he plays here. And I don't know why more people haven't gotten wise to this, which is that he uses behavioral economics as like the basis for everything he does. And the thing he uses most effectively is the anchoring bias. Whenever he's negotiating anything, right?
Without a question, yes.
He always goes to the most extreme because from an anchoring perspective, that's how you get people closer to what you want. But it's never what he actually wants. He wants to be closer to the center, but he just gets it so far out that you feel like you won when you get to where he wants you to be. And he's used this effectively in negotiations for as long as he's been in business and as president. And it happens every time. And everybody seems surprised every time. Oh, thank God he didn't go. Oh, thank God. Dude, he does this so well. And how other people aren't like wise to it yet is beyond me. Because every time people are like, aren't you concerned? Oh my God. No, because he's never going to land there.
Okay.
And that's the whole point.
Can we, for 5 minutes, have a rather serious discussion about Donald Trump and something happened? And guys, you guys are watching too. I'm confused about this. Did he really repost something intentionally that had the Obama's faces on like apes' bodies? Did he really do that?
I'm
Do you
sure
guys
he
know?
did. Everything he does is very calculated.
So
here's their. All right. So supposedly his video was the video that he posted was immediately preceding a video that had a bunch of different politicians in animal costumes. And the editing person let it get into the part where the Obamas were monkeys. But like Shana said, he didn't come out and go, that was a mistake. I didn't do that. It was a video. What's her name? The press secretary. I can't remember her name right now.
yeah, Levitt.
Yeah, Levitt, Caroline Levitt. She said, we're not going to say anything about this. This is a ridiculous Democratic hoax. It was a whole nother, they just ignored it.
So
that's
I
the
am convinced that he
calculated
does
part,
this
right?
stuff on purpose. I'm convinced that he does this stuff to distract us from something else.
Yeah.
Could easily
Every
be.
time.
Yeah. And
Every
again,
time.
the whole
And I don't understand why people haven't figured that out yet. He
No, I
does these crazy things, and it's always to distract us from something else that's more serious. And a bunch of friends of mine and I were talking about the Epstein files and how like nobody seems to care. But there's been stuff like this all along where there's like really serious stuff out there, whether you want to dive into the Epstein files and the controversy and the conspiracy theories around that. But like, that's really serious and intentionally put out on a Friday, intentionally very difficult to get through, intentionally whatever. And then I do feel like a lot of times he does the wildest stuff to distract people from something else. And he is so good at manipulating the greater public with this stuff. I look at it and I find it fascinating that people don't see it. Like, because to me, it's so obvious, but like nobody seems to have caught on to this. It's all a tactic. Everything he does is extremely calculated. And sometimes the stuff that causes the most controversy and the most uproar is intentional to get you from stop paying attention to something that like is actually important.
I think it's a really good point, Jimmy, because it was on the video, and you can't tell me when Trump saw it, he wasn't going to be like, crap, that's a mistake. We need to fire this person.
It's like 2 years ago when the SEC claimed that somebody hacked their account about what was it, Bitcoin or ETH approvals, like, and they were like, somebody, no, that wasn't supposed to happen. Like, oh, okay, whatever. Yeah.
So
plausible deniability is very much at play with a lot of this stuff. And anyone who can't see that, I just don't understand.
There's another question from Tim here. Any thoughts on deep water drilling? Rig announced plans to buy Valaris today.
I saw that, and Rig's stock price reacted to that. Here's my thing on deep water drilling. Deep water drilling is expensive. And when oil is cheap and dangerous and expensive. And so you got to get a crude oil price to a certain point to make it worth it. And we ain't there. We're not even close.
Plus, Rig has been on a one-way street higher since the beginning of 2025.
They're spending some of that money on Valaris. Valaris obviously reacted as well. I never look at Valaris because just the volume 1.3 average a day.
But just by eyeballing it, Rig, I think, has made 50% back from the move that began down in 2023. Which is a big move. So I think it's going to be.
Shana's spot on, though. I mean, not part of the reason it's expensive. You get blowouts because of water pressure. You get environmental challenges.
I know all about it. I watch Landman. I happen to be an expert on offshore drilling because of Landman. Shana, do you watch Landman or no?
I don't, but I've heard that it's like Gen X's like show.
It's so
like,
good.
So much Gen X references in there. But I don't watch a lot of like that kind of TV. If I'm being honest, I really don't. I watch so much like. I like the unexplained and history's greatest mysteries and like
I love that kind of stuff too.
All kind of stuff in that realm, like ancient apocalypse. And then I watch like really I love Bridgerton.
Oh, nice. I loved Ancient Apocalypse.
I love the Diplomat. That's another one. So like
I liked it. I just never could understand the storyline. I loved Kerry Russell and I loved the guy who plays her husband. They were so good, but the storylines were so complicated that you can't be half drunk and watch an episode.
I feel like it's Madam Secretary, but like turned up
Yeah.
a notch.
Turned up a notch. Exactly. Yeah, I tried it. I gave it up though.
I don't know. I like Madam Secretary, but I don't get into a lot of TV shows. I like ones that like make me really like think. I don't know, that are like,
okay,
like
I'm going to make one more push
dorky.
for Landman with you because it is about oil drilling and they go into it a lot and Billy Bob Thornton is hysterical. So I really thought that was a quality show. Anyway, Bobby, got one last market question or no?
No, I just like talking to Shana.
Yeah, just shooting shit. Right, yes.
We literally did like 2 half-hour shows now, and that's about all my brain can work with. I just like talking to her.
Okay, very cool. All right, Bobby, you let you play us out when you feel like it. Then I'm going to run to basketball practice.
I have a hard out today, unfortunately, because we started later. So you can play us out when you're ready.
Play us out right now.
Yeah,
Thank you guys.
that's entirely my fault, by the way. I had to pick my kid up.
Not in the slightest. I had something I had to do first. I cross-scheduled. Thank you guys so much for joining us. You know I love the live element to this show, and you guys add so much to it. You guys are great. Thank you again to our sponsor, Independence Arc Farm. Check out Marco at Independence Arc. American Gold Exchange, Dana Samuelson, and our favorite and most important sponsor is unfilteredinvestor.com. Nobody who has signed up for it has been sorry. Even the people who had to move away, it was only because they didn't have the time to put into all the information they were getting, and they told us that up front. Everybody else who has used it is unbelievably happy with unfilteredinvestor.com. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm Jim Euro. That's Bobby Chino. That's Shana Orchik.